Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this virtual briefing for the Innovate at HS2 SBRI competition, Phase 1. We are so pleased to see so many of you joining us today. I am Daisy Chapman-Chamberlain, and I am the Rail Knowledge Transfer Manager at KTN. KTN has been very pleased to work alongside Speed 2 and Innovate UK for this competition, and to be involved in a project that holds the enormous level of national significance and importance that Speed 2 does. Of course, as this is a virtual event, I have no housekeeping other than to say I hope everyone has a nice cup of tea for what is sure to be a brilliant event. If you have any queries about the event or the competition, please do put those into the chat. For competition questions, we will answer some today during the Q&A. Those that we don't have time to answer will be collated and answered in the next few days, and we'll be publishing a Q&A sheet with a link that will be sent to you. We're also using Meeting Mojo, which allows you to exchange messages with delegates and arrange video calls to take place after the briefing. Please also use this to schedule one-to-one calls with our competition specialists. So, on to the agenda. I hope. There we go. Very shortly, we will have a ministerial welcome from Andrew Stevenson, Minister for High Speed Rail, followed by a welcome and introduction from Chris Rayner, Infrastructure Director at HS2. Then on to an overview of the competition with Rob Cairns, Innovation Manager, and Howard Mitchell, Head of Innovation, both at HS2. Then we will hear from the team at Innovate UK, where Kelvin Davis, Innovation Lead for Rail, will talk through the scope and the application process. Following the Q&A, we'll then have a short tea break and our specialist presentations. And after closing at 11:45, we'll take another short break, and then at 12 o'clock, our pre-booked one-to-one specialist meetings will begin to take place. So now it is my pleasure to hand you over to Andrew Stevenson, Minister for High Speed Rail. Minister, over to you.
Well, thank you, Daisy, and thank you very much for having me here today to be able to join you. This is actually the second event about HS2 and innovation that I'm speaking at this week. On Monday, I took part in an event for the HS2 Accelerator Programme, and today I'm lucky enough to be here with you all at this session for the Innovate at HS2 2020 competition. Both of these events are incredibly exciting for me. It's truly wonderful to see so many businesses wanting to drive forward innovation in HS2 and really take advantage of the opportunities this transformative project offers. When we talk about HS2, we often emphasise the impact the project will have on our economy, and rightly so. More than 13,000 jobs are already supported by HS2, and it's expected to create thousands more over the coming months and years, providing much needed certainty at what is clearly a difficult time for many people and businesses. But I often find myself repeating a phrase that our Prime Minister himself used, that HS2 is at the heart of our plans to build back better from COVID-19. Because as well as creating opportunities for employment, we're also taking the opportunity to think about the way that we deliver, to look at how we can do things better, faster, and more efficiently. And HS2 presents an opportunity to realise great innovation and on a scale unlike anything seen before. When complete, HS2 will help grow clusters of innovation around the country by improving connections between sectors and markets. But it also has the power to work with our SME community, which is the lifeblood of innovation. That is why I'm really excited about this competition and the partnership with Innovate UK, as it will provide a gateway for innovative SMEs like yours to interact with the HS2 project and play a part in building the most advanced railway in the world. Now, I understand this is just the start of the process, and I wish all of you luck in submitting your entries. I'm really looking forward to following the progress of those companies selected alongside the progress of the HS2 project. I very much hope we can play a part in each other's success. Thank you, Daisy, for having me. I'll hand back to you.
Wonderful. Minister, thank you so much for that wonderful welcome. And now we will be moving on to Chris. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Daisy, and good morning to everybody. This is an important time for the High-Speed 2 programme. We were granted notice to proceed for Phase 1 back in April, which was the authority from government to commence the main civil engineering programme worth around £10 billion. Construction sites are now springing up along the 230 kilometres of the Phase 1 route. Work is also proceeding well with the Phase 1 stations. You may have seen recently our eye-catching designs for Kerr Street and Interchange. These stations are not only examples of great design, they will also contribute to placemaking that will enhance the lives of the people of the railway and those who live near it. This year, we've also launched the railway systems procurement for Phase 1 and are finalising the assessment of tenders for the supply of trains, so we can place an order early next year. Planning for Phase 2A of the route from Birmingham to Crewe is well advanced. The hybrid bill, which gives us the powers we need for construction, is reaching its final stages, and we anticipate royal assent early next year. We're working hard also on the development of the hybrid bill for Phase 2B, which takes the route onto Manchester, and we hope to lay that bill before Parliament towards the end of next year. HS2 will be a world-class state-of-the-art railway. To achieve this vision, we want to adopt innovative ideas and new technologies to improve the way we work. That's why I'm excited by the prospect of working with Innovate UK and pleased to see companies from across the UK apply to join this, which is the first of its kind competition for HS2. Across our industry, smaller, more agile companies drive us to improve. They bring new ideas and ways of working that challenge us to do things better. In order to continually develop and evolve, we need to embrace these great ideas and work with these companies to innovate in a cleaner, smarter and faster way. The Innovated HS2 2020 competition presents a direct opportunity to work with us and our Tier 1 supply chain, an opportunity to demonstrate the route-wide value of your innovative ideas and solutions and provide you with a route to market. High-Speed 2 will run for a couple of decades. Therefore, the longevity of the programme and range of contracts we will manage present huge amounts of variation of works and opportunities to innovate. Today, we are launching 5 themed challenges that our project and supply chain teams have identified for this competition. I hope you're excited by the opportunity to work with and become part of HS2. Finally, as a programme, our investments in innovation should leave footsteps beyond the railway we build. By way of an analogy, another massive mega project, the Apollo programme, left far more than just footsteps. Cordless drills, Nike air trainers, and modern dialysis machines can trace some of their heritage to the innovation of the space race. We have a unique opportunity to use the size and scale of High-Speed 2 to influence real change across both the rail and construction industries. I encourage you all on the call to seize this opportunity to make a difference and contribute your ideas to this competition. Thank you and good luck.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Chris. And now over to Rob and Howard to overview the competition for us.
Thank you, Daisy. I think all of the great words have been already said by the Minister and Chris in terms of how excited we are here within Innovation at HS2 to be part of this. This is the first time we've worked in direct collaboration with Innovate UK, which provides us with a huge amount of reach beyond our normal contacts that we hold just within HS2. So it's a really exciting time. We really want to hear great ideas from SME businesses. Over 70% of our active innovation projects have SME businesses within that collaborative environment, and we pride ourselves in building a really strong cross-functional team to deliver innovation at the scale that is necessary for HS2. I'd like to hand over to Rob from our team, who is the main driving force behind this competition, who would like to share a little bit more about the strategy that we're putting behind this. So Rob, over to you to talk about the HS2 strategy.
Thanks, Howard. And thanks for joining the call, everybody, today. Very excited to launch this competition to everybody. As Howard and Chris have alluded to, it's the first of a kind that we've run with Innovate UK, very much following in the footsteps of our industry colleagues, Network Rail, RSSB, DFT. So we're very hopeful that this competition can be the start of something very successful and can lead to another sort of leg to the bow of opportunities for business to work and collaborate on innovation on HS2. For those of you who are not aware of our sort of strategy that surrounds the innovation program, we've built that around 4 key themes. And they are the environmental piece, where we're looking to innovate, to do more with less, and creating fewer emissions and noise as we do so. Today, you'll hear a little bit about our waste in construction challenge. As you can imagine, it's quite well publicised, the amount of waste that is associated to the construction industry. We're very, very proactive in identifying smarter, cleaner, greener ways of enabling HS2, and is right at the core of our innovation strategy to deliver these new ways of working and encourage this way of working. So you'll hear more around that today. The productivity theme is one of the biggest opportunities for us in industry, in the project. We have a huge amount of legacy ways of working, lots of manual, repetitive, and paper-based activities, all of which lend themselves very nicely to opportunities for automation, optimization, and digitization. So reducing manual ways of working is another challenge that you'll hear a little bit about later today. And by far the biggest opportunity that we have is our processes. The way that we work, the way that we contract, the way that we work across our supply chain. And as those of you on the call will be aware, HS2 is the biggest infrastructure project in the UK, in Europe. It's very complex. It has a large commercial landscape. So there are lots of different interfaces between different contracts, between different work packages, between local authorities. And as soon as you sort of build those complexities for delivery of a construction project, it points to, again, opportunities of how can we do things smarter? How can we do things a little bit cleaner in how we operate? So we're very excited to understand what types of optimization we can identify in that space. And from a sort of customer experience perspective, I guess, if you throw in people experience into that mix, HS2 will recruit something like 30,000 people throughout the duration of the project. And the likelihood is that we will need to recruit from across Europe to do so. So site onboarding and recruitment is going to be a fundamental challenge for our supply chain teams and for the client team at HS2. So making that a smoother process, a consistent process, and one that doesn't allude to time inefficiencies is a huge opportunity for us to leave a bit of a legacy of how our people can feel appreciated on the program and how we can make the onboarding and recruitment process as easy as possible. Because as you can imagine, recruiting 30,000 people over the length of the project is quite a task, and one that I think from a recruitment perspective in the UK, you'd be hard pushed to try and beat. And then finally, there's a challenge that we've launched again around process, and that's really around procurement loss prevention and how we can ensure and control the costs in and out of the project. There are some government reports to allude some huge opportunities in having tighter control and management and understanding of procurement loss and control. So you'll hear a little bit about that later on today. And as part of our enabling ecosystem that we build to deliver innovation on the project, we have different partners, frameworks in place, and initiatives to enable us to do so. As the Minister alluded to, we had recently launched our accelerator program. We've recruited 10 SME organisations to that program. We have supply chain collaboration with our tier 1 supply chain, and that can result in discovery projects, feasibility projects, which is based on the premise of what we're launching today with Innovate UK. We want to understand the feasibility, the viability, and the desirability of innovation opportunities, that we can quantify and evidence the value of those opportunities to our client teams within HS2 and to our supply chain partners, so they can understand the true value of working with some of the fantastic SMEs and organisations that we'll have on the call today. We also have some high profile frameworks in place with the academic universities around the country via our UCRIN framework, UCRIC, the Catapult networks, of which some are supporting us with the accelerator program, and I3P, the industry platform for innovation that Mark Thurston, our CEO, co-chairs. And then finally, we have, in the last few years, we've been quite active in the competition space. So working with Innovate UK on their SBRIs, on the ISCF competitions, and likewise with some of the RSSB competitions as well. The reason why we've launched this competition today is because we have seen tremendous value in that competition approach. We've seen some fantastic SMEs come to the market, and we've had some great success stories with some of those companies that have actually left a legacy and have fundamentally changed the way that our projects are approaching new ways of working and mandating and changing work instructions to really adopt innovation into the program. So we have quite a good understanding of how we can take a very clever idea from a very small micro SME organisation and roll that out with a route to market on the scale of HS2 that could fundamentally change the way that the project works and could fundamentally change the way that the industry approaches the respective areas. So we're very excited today to be launching this competition and the value that it can present to the programme and to the wider industry. You would have heard some messaging around cleaner, smarter and faster today. It's a message that we've launched as part of the accelerator programme, and it's something that we believe that the Innovate UK competition can definitely support in helping us realise. Cleaner, the format of the SBRI competition allows a very smooth and traceable process that can track the progress of an innovation from beginning to end. We're running this as quite a short competition, as you'll hear from Kelvin a little later today. 3-month feasibility projects. It isn't a huge amount of time, but that's intentionally so because we want to be faster, as you've heard, faster in realising value and faster in realising where opportunities do not, where opportunities can fail. And I think it's important to recognise that our innovation portfolio, the Innovate UK competitions, innovation as a whole, as I'm sure everyone on the call is aware, opportunities don't always go forward. There is opportunity to fail, but with those failures we learn, and I think that is a key message to take, that you shouldn't be disheartened if you are not successful in this competition, or if your innovation opportunities move forward and they fail, then we should learn from those. An example that I tend to use is Google. They have a Google graveyard. Does feel a bit spooky following Halloween, but that's where Gmail came from, and that's one of their core products today. So I would just encourage those that if you are coming up against blockers, if you're coming up against failures, I would encourage you to continue and pursue with your ideas, because It's only a matter of time or technology advancements that can make those things a reality and make them turn to successes. So today you'll hear a little bit from on the challenges from our supply chain teams. We're joined by the Align joint venture, we're joined by SES joint venture, and we're joined by BBVS in the one-to-ones later today. Some of our client teams are also here, so you'll hear from the wider innovation team and some of our materials experts later on in the one-to-ones again. And we very much see that there is cross-collaboration across the challenges that we're launching today, not just for HS2, but also for the wider industry, as we've mentioned. I3P, Network Rail, Highways England, Environmental Agency. As we sit and we co-chair I3P, we have lots of incentives and initiatives to ensure that we are making sure that these benefits don't just reward HS2 and our supply chain, but they do. We are able to showcase them to our industry peers. You will hear a little bit more about the sort of strategy of the competition, I guess, and the approach being a two-phase approach. This phase one, like I said, is a 3-month short time scale, fail fast, win fast approach. But I guess the incentivization to those of you on the call is that we will be looking at a phase 2, and that's where we'll be looking to bring some of this great opportunities in-house to become part of the HS2 supply chain, to work with our tier 1 joint ventures, to understand the opportunity, improve the opportunity on our project, and roll that out for phase 1 and phase 2 of the project. So finally, I'd just like to wish you all good luck with your applications today. We are here to support you throughout one-to-one sessions at the end of today's session, and very much look forward to receiving what we're going to do today. So thank you to the Innovate UK team. Thank you to Daisy and the KTN. Back over to you, Daisy.
Thank you so much, both. And yes, now straight on to the Innovate UK team to take us through the scope and the application process. Over to you, Kelvin.
Thank you very much, Daisy, and good morning all. Thank you in particular to our remote audience for joining. When we originally conceived this competition, we imagined having a meeting in Birmingham today for us to all meet each other in person, which is an indication of how hard we've been working together for the best part of the last year to get to where we are today. So I'm Kelvin Davies. I'm Innovation Lead for Rail at Innovate UK, and I'm joined on the call today by 3 colleagues, so Dan, Steve and Hannah, who will help with the question and answer session, and who have worked alongside Rob and Howard to get this competition up and running. What I'm going to do is quickly take you through the details of the competition, the belt and braces of how to apply, and encourage you to take your innovative ideas to apply into the competition and to demonstrate what you're capable of to HS2. Also aware that some of you may not be familiar with Innovate UK. So we are branded as the UK's innovation agency. Essentially, we invest public funding into the economy to help teams to innovate and to make the UK more competitive and more profitable. We're a competition delivery agency, and when organisations like HS2, like Network Rail, like DFT wish to run competitions, we're more than happy to oblige and to deliver our competition product for those organisations. And as Rob has mentioned, this is the first time that we've seen HS2 and Innovate UK collaborating. So it's a momentous day, both significant publicly funded organisations, obviously, and here we are delivering SBRI Innovated HS2 2020 Phase 1. The aims of the briefing, usually I would add here that a key aim of the briefing is networking. That's more difficult in the current climate. But what we want to do is to allow HS2 in particular to brief on the competition objectives. We'll set out the background, we'll describe the scope and answer questions on that. We also would like to highlight the role of KTN and the catapults. So if you are requiring guidance and support about how to bid into the competitions, how to find partners, then the catapult and KTN are there to help. And networking opportunities, as we say, are more difficult, but we have some one-to-one sessions later on and some opportunities to interact on a one-to-one basis. So a summary of the competition. Many of you will already be familiar. but there is 300k plus VAT available for the phase 1. It's eligible under SBRI rules to pretty much any organisation, but be aware that for phase 2, the requirement is to deliver a demonstrator in the UK. SBRI is a funding mechanism where lucky recipients can be in receipt of 100% funding, each project up to 30k, including VAT, for 3 months, as Rob has mentioned, and the objective is a technical feasibility demonstration. The competition objectives are available online, and most of you will already have found those and had a browse. The objective clearly is to demonstrate the desirability and feasibility of your innovation. So what can you do? How would it help HS2? In phase 1, the objective is to demonstrate the proof of concept. You can go beyond that if you want, but the minimum viable offering is to demonstrate the proof of concept. And at the end of phase 1, what we're expecting teams to deliver is a report outlining what you've proved, how your innovation might be of benefit to HS2. And HS2 will have the right and to share that report with their colleagues in the supply chain. The specific themes, as Rob's mentioned, there are 5, and we'll hear from HS2 colleagues later on providing more detail of each of these. It's important for you to select which of those themes your innovation most closely applies and to apply to that theme. It is true that sometimes innovations might straddle more than one theme, but nonetheless, we expect you to select one theme as your primary focus. Those 5 themes are summarized here, and I won't go into them in a huge amount of detail. You can read them on the screen for yourself, but there is reducing manual operations, project interfaces with the 5 bullet points listed there, waste in construction with the bullet points listed below, recruitment and onboarding, and finally, procurement loss prevention. So as I suggested, your innovation should align most closely with one of those, but perhaps straddling other themes. In phase 1, as we've already mentioned, we're looking for a technical feasibility study. So it should be planned research and investigation to gain new knowledge, developing new products, processes, or services. The primary objective in phase 1 is to demonstrate an initial proof of concept, something that potentially could take itself forward to phase 2. And then ultimately, the objective is to get it embedded in the HS2 program in day-to-day use. And in phase 1, we'd expect you to work closely with some stakeholders to develop your solution. It's critical that what you're offering is something that HS2 want and need. Phase 2, additional details will be provided to successful phase 1 applicants. That is to follow at the end of phase 1. And in the key differential in phase 2 is that you'll have the opportunity to work directly with the tier 1 suppliers into HS2. It's a fantastic opportunity, and it's something that I'm expecting many teams to be very keen to avail of this opportunity. There are projects we won't fund. There always are. We are looking for particular types of projects which are listed here. So we're looking for things that can be successfully exploited. We're also looking for a change in the level of innovation. So we really welcome applications which are slightly different, certainly novel. The competition challenges are obviously key. If you don't meet the competition challenges, you'll be very early on identified as being out of scope. Return on investment is important. We're also looking for innovations that can be deployed on the HS2 program quickly. So certainly within 3 years and ideally faster than that. And we want novel products. We don't want solutions that are already commercially available. In terms of eligibility, this funding framework is through a program which is named SBRI. To be eligible for public funding from that program, at least 50% of your activity must be R&D activities, which are listed here. And R&D in particular does not include the 3 activities listed in the lower part of the slide. So commercial development, commercial viability, and integration, customization, and incremental adaptations. So you should satisfy yourselves that what you're proposing meets the eligibility for this competition. The dates, you're already aware. The competition opened back on the 21st of October. Here we are at the briefing event on the 12th of November. And the important date for all of you to remember is that the competition closes at 11 AM on the 16th of December. So please remember the 11 AM. Innovate UK used to close competitions at noon, but we've now brought that forward by 1 hour to 11 AM. Late applications will not be accepted. For those teams that do choose to apply, we'll let the applicants know the outcome of that process on the 22nd of January, with a plan to get contracts awarded on the 19th, and critically for a start of projects on the 1st of March next year. Top tips. Many of you may have applied to Innovate UK competitions before, but for those of you that haven't, stating the obvious, please read the scope documents. We always suggest that when you've finished your application, you reread the scope documents. There tends to be a drift in the understanding of what was in the original documents. So please reread. Pay attention to the expected outcomes. Is there really a need for your project? What is the challenge you're addressing? Is it really within scope? Does it address HS2's requirements? Tell us why it's innovative. Tell the assessors how your process is something that HS2 really needs and isn't already available. What is your route to market? And take care, please, not to go beyond the eligibility criteria. Nothing is more frustrating than getting a really good application that disqualifies itself by making errors in the budget applied for, the format of the application, the teaming requirements, or the innovation applied for. What I'll quickly do now is take you through the nuts and bolts of how to apply for an Innovate UK competition. Again, many of you may have seen this before, so I'll go through it quickly, and the slides are also available to you after the event and through the YouTube video feed. So as I've already mentioned, SBRI is a 100% funded R&D framework through which public funding can be invested in organizations to meet challenges. HS2 have outlined 5 challenges for you to get your teeth into. The contract will be with a prime supplier. If you choose as that prime supplier to let subcontracts, that's fine. We need to know a minimal amount about that. It's up to you how to manage the program. And the IP will rest with the supplier, so with yourselves. How to apply? Well, you may already have found the key page. The competition page is live now and has been since late October. The way to apply is to start your application. There are various routes through the application form. You need to, obviously, if you've not applied to Innovate UK before, create an account for yourselves. Then the questions on the form, there are about 11 different sections to fill out. Many are obvious: the application details, some EDI questions, a summary of your project, and a public description. The public description for successful projects will be made publicly available. So only put in there things that you are happy to go into the public domain. Critically for this competition, as I've already mentioned, you must select one of the 5 themes to which your innovation does apply. So that's a drop-down box. Please select one of those bullet points. The bulk of the application is then covered on these 7 questions. So question 1, the idea on the technology. Question 2, the technical project. Question 3, current state of the art and intellectual property. Question 4, project plan and methodology. Question 5, the technical team and your expertise. Question 6, costs and value for money. And question 7, commercial potential. And appendices are allowable for a number of those questions, as indicated on the right-hand side of that slide. How to submit your application? Essentially, you open the web application form, you fill out the form, and then you click submit. Please remember to click submit. A number of teams do all of the hard work, and then at the very last hurdle fail to remember to click submit. Similarly, there is a tendency for teams to click submit at the last possible moment. That's fine if you wish to take the risk. What we see here is a graph of the number of applications for a past competition as a function of time. And as you can imagine, the closing date for the competition is right down the bottom. So there's a lot of interest in clicking submit right against the final deadline of the competition. We'd encourage you not to do that in case there are any technical hitches. And as I've mentioned before, late submissions sadly are not eligible. So 1 second past 11 o'clock, unfortunately, your application will be discounted, and we don't want that. In terms of assessment, if you're familiar with the Innovate UK process, each of our applications goes to a number of independent assessors. In the case of this competition, we anticipate that one of those assessors will be from HS2 itself. So they will have a very clear view on what they were looking for. But how to frame your assessment, make your application clear and concise. Tell us the right amount of information. Please don't reduce the font and add more and more detail for the sake of it. Explain what you're delivering in terms of quantification and justification. And we're also interested, and particularly from the SME community, in a proposal that allows you to grow. Notes on the feedback. So when we have assessed your application, will provide feedback. The assessors will independently provide a number of notes about how they perceive your application, what was good, what was bad. Those assessors will act independently, so sometimes there can be contradictions. That's a normal part of our process. And it is part of the Innovate UK process as well that we will look through the assessment scoring and review if there are what we call outlier scores. So an outlier score has a definition within our organisation. If an assessor has got the wrong end of the stick in relation to an application, then we reserve the right to remove that scoring. So an example of an outlier is shown here. So the score is highlighted in red. From the 5 assessors that we use for this particular competition, what you'll see is that one of the assessors has scored untowardly low. Innovate UK, through reviewing the applications, will discuss internally whether that score needs to be removed. That's a favourable outcome for an applicant, but clearly an outlier can also be an untowardly high scoring assessor, in which case we might apply the same process. All applicants will receive feedback on your application. That feedback is the assessor scores and their comments, and that is provided to you whether you're successful or unsuccessful. Many teams that are successful don't bother to read the feedback, but we'd encourage you to do so. It's an important part of the process, and we invest a large amount of time and indeed public funding in creating this feedback. If you see that one assessor has scored your application particularly low or high, we may have removed those scores from your overall score, but you won't have any information on that. So a frequent comment or question we get is, such and such an assessor was biased against us. Please, can we appeal against our overall score? We may have already taken that into account in defining your final scores. And that's all I have to say about the scope and the application process. So I'll now hand back to Daisy for the rest of the session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelvin. And thank you so much to everyone who has spoken today. We do now have some time for a Q&A. So going into the Q&A box, so far we only have one question. So if you are listening and you do have questions, please do drop those into the chat so we can answer them. We have a question here probably for Kelvin or Rob. If we already carried out a successful pilot project on HS2, can we still apply? We want to apply our innovation to another of the target applications.
Shall I start answering that, Rob, and then hand it to you? So the key thing is it needs to be innovative. So if it's something that's already been applied to HS2, then it would immediately be out of scope. But Rob, I'll let you answer the rest of that question.
Yeah, really following on from Kelvin there, I guess we have seen instances where you can change applications, and that, I guess it all translates to what is the business case to support it. You know, if you can quite clearly demonstrate that it is something innovative and there's 50% of R&D associated to what you're doing, then that would tick the Innovate UK box. From a HS2 perspective, we can back more than one horse in a race, and where we see one technology, if it's AI, for example, and it's in one particular use case or one process, it depends how easy it is to transfer that and exploit that one proven project across different areas. So I would just suggest that all comes down to the business case that you put forward in the application. But my sort of high-level steer would be yes.
I think I could quickly add as well, Rob, that there's 2 ways to be innovative, and that's to do something new in an old place or do something old in a new place. So the fact that something has already been used somewhere doesn't mean that it's not innovative to use it somewhere new.
And we're not ashamed to pinch with pride, as Crossrail referred to it. You know, that's we see major benefit in capitalising on what's already been proven and demonstrating it in another scenario or another sort of environment. So yeah, agree with that.
Brilliant. We have another couple of questions coming in now. So we have, what have been the challenges around recruitment for the HS2 project?
Well, I guess you'll hear a little bit more about that later around the specific challenge associated to it. But like I alluded to, there's huge numbers that we need to recruit. I can give you a case study. It's in the public space from Crossrail when they had an incident where someone was actually killed on the Crossrail project, and it was because they were recruited from Europe. They didn't understand the safety briefing. They walked into a space that was an exclusion zone, and they had an incident, and unfortunately that resulted in a death. So that really points to the need to try and adopt and do things differently. So if we as a project don't learn from those incidents and we don't try to proactively do something differently, then that leads to the risk for HS2 workforce. So that's a very specific challenge that we've recognised as an incident that occurred on a previous mega project, and we want to learn from that and make sure that we can reduce the risk of that happening as much as possible.
Absolutely. We have one for Kelvin here. Are collaborative submissions allowed, for example, an SME with specialist support from a university?
Yes, so SBRI is a framework. To an extent, it's up to the lead applicant to decide how to assemble a team to best meet the requirements. The key thing to remember is that the contract, and it is a contract, it's not a grant offer letter, is with the lead applicant, or the applicant, because there is nobody else. And it is the responsibility of that team to let subcontracts to engage the other skills that are required. And those skills can, as you mentioned, be industrial or academic.
Perfect, thank you. We have one here. Is involvement of one of the HS2 JV companies desirable or necessary within the bid?
Do you want to take that from a governance perspective first, Kelvin? So
from a governance perspective, the answer to many of these questions is whatever it says in the scope documents is what applies. So there is no requirement to meet that partnership. So we don't require that, but clearly it might have some advantages in terms of the way that the assessors score your application.
And ultimately, just to add to that, the whole premise of running this type of competition is to attract new business to the project, to our supply chain, innovative ideas that aren't currently being either capitalized or rolled out across our project. So ultimately, you're after a route to market, and our supply chain, working with our supply chain to become part of their tiered supply chain is, I guess, the ultimate goal. So I definitely encourage conversations with our tier one joint ventures. If you can demonstrate your technology and capability on their sites, you know, that gives us a very real case study. So again, echoing what Kelvin said, I think that probably gives you strength to the bid. But you could demonstrate your capability off-site. It doesn't need to be on a HS2 site. It could be in a lab. It could be in a test environment. It could be on a Network Rail or Highways England site. You know, so you're not bound to do that, and it's not compulsory. As long as we can see the value that your solutions can bring to the project, that's good enough for me.
Wow, thank you. Rob, another one for you. Is there anywhere we can review the innovations already in use on HS2?
We currently don't share our portfolio externally. We it's very visible to our supply chain, and we are continuing to work on sort of case studies that our comms team produce. So at the moment, no, it's not available, unfortunately. But we can have those discussions with people if they want to understand what we're currently working on. Our team are all very approachable. You can get in touch with us directly, and we can have those conversations. But unfortunately, no, we don't have that in the open space at the moment. But we are working on publishing case studies and so forth.
Great, thank you. Potentially another one again for you, Rob. Lots of talking for you today, unless one of our specialist presenters wants to jump in. For applications around software solutions using data, do we need to partner with one of the HS2 suppliers as part of the application consortium, or will HS2 help us to access data if selected?
Yes, we will. We're not quite there yet. We are working on making data more accessible in terms of sandbox approaches for this type of thing. By the time we go live with these projects, that sort of data sandbox approach should be available to you. So if, as part of the application process, you require some data, I guess we can have data sharing agreements and look at NDAs and so forth to bespoke as much as possible. I'd probably suggest that that's going to become even more relevant in the phase 2 sections of the project, and that's where you're really going to get the value. It doesn't need to be too specific in the early feasibility stages. You just need to demonstrate to us the viability, desirability, feasibility of your solution, that it's fit for purpose for the project. But we can definitely have those conversations. So that's the sort of thing that would be good to book in sort of one-to-one sessions with us and discuss offline.
Perfect, thank you. We have one here for you, Kelvin, or two very similar questions. Are we eligible if we have already received funding through Innovate UK?
Yes, you're eligible in spite of having received funding previously, but the key point is that what you're applying into this competition needs to be innovative in the HS2 context. So as Rob's mentioned, if you've got a great idea that's been used somewhere else, perhaps ideally not in the rail industry, and you can see potential to apply it to the HS2 program, then you are eligible.
Perfect, simple answer. Rob, I think another one for you, potentially both you and Kelvin. With 10 projects up to 30k each, how will HS2 and Innovate prioritize project applications across the different themes?
So I guess we've launched 5 challenges. So you could say that, ideally it would be great to get 2 responses to each challenge. In practice, it doesn't always work that way. And I mean, Kelvin, you'll know more about the scoring metrics for the programs, but it would be good to get a blend across those projects, but it will really depend on how those applications are reviewed.
I can add to that quickly then, perhaps, Rob. So you're absolutely right. The normal way that Innovate UK would score the applications into a competition such as this is to put them in 5 different categories and to look to fund the top 2 applications in each category. But as you mentioned, Rob, ultimately HS2 has flexibility to pick and choose. But I think the default might be to pick 2 from each theme.
Perfect. We have one here. What is the recommended TRL level for phase 1 applications?
So well, these are feasibility studies. So the definition of the feasibility study is available online. Rob, you can probably add to that.
Yeah, I guess part of what you'll hear today when you hear more about the challenges is that feasibility is something that we are very, very focused on. So phase 1 of the project is obviously, we've got time bounds associated to when we can build, and then when we move to operation of the railway. So that they are really the only sort of major constraints that you need to bear in mind is when can HS2, our supply chain, benefit from the ideas and solutions that you're presenting. So if they have really long lead times, then that's probably going to only lend itself to phase 2 of the project, and that will undoubtedly dilute the value opportunity of your offering. at the moment, phase one, shovels are in the ground. So not so much on the high TRL, but certainly on the time it will take to realise those opportunities are the considerations that you need to bear in mind.
Perfect, thank you. We have one here. With hiring close to 30,000 people, is the hiring focused on apprentices and graduates or on more experienced hires?
Do you want to take that one, Kelvin?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that one, Rob. I mean, I think, again, the key answer to all of these questions is that in order to be successful, each application needs to pass through two gates. The first gate is it an eligible application for the competition? And the way that's assessed is by reference back to the competition documents. So given that there's no guidance in the competition documents about that specific item, then there's no blocker there. The next gate to pass through is to make sure that the application meets the scope requirement and is highly scored by the assessors. So I don't know how we can add to that, Rob. I mean, I think given that that's not outlined in the documents, it's probably open to all skill levels.
Yeah, and HS2 is a client, so we're quite a lean client, 1,600 people, something like that. We've actually just recruited some recent trench, I guess, of graduates and apprentices, some of whom you'll hear from later today on this session briefing. And I believe they're on like a two-year placement. The same is occurring across the supply chain, and those programs will continue across the duration of the HS2 project. So apprentices and graduates absolutely form part of those 30,000 people, but certainly the bulk of that workforce are going to be operational workforce to build engineers, etc., and so forth. Like I said, we're quite lean in terms of the client and sort of in-house teams, but you'll probably hear a little bit more about that later on from our SCS joint venture.
Thank you. What sorts of innovation is the project looking for in terms of noise reduction? Rob, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So my colleague, Jonathan Kelly's on the call as well. He might want to jump in on this one. He's sort of looking after the noise piece, but I'll try and give you an initial view. Is that noise is something that we're trying to manage across the route. Noise barriers are going to be something that you will see along the HS2 route to protect the receptors or houses or local communities along the route. So anything we can do to either reduce noise barriers or reduce noise mitigation and height of barriers is, one, aesthetically pleasing for the local communities and for passengers, but also on our construction sites, noise is a big contributing factor. It's something that we worked on an Innovate UK project on to actually protect our workforce and understand noise in a much more visual way around our sites. John, I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that. No, take that as a note. So I think that's probably answers the answer adequately enough.
Perfect, thank you. We have one here. Does improved safety of workers during construction fit into the scope of the call? Kelvin, Rob?
Just trying to go back to the scope, actually. Kelvin, do you...
I don't believe we specifically mentioned safety in the scope. So the question would be, which of the 5 themes does that most closely align to? And how would the application directly address the challenges of that theme?
Yeah, and health and safety is a big focus. We've run quite a few challenges on health and safety. And internally as well, and it's definitely going to form part of one of our accelerator cohort programs. So the fact that we don't have something definitive on health and safety here, don't take too much from that. The reason why we've launched these challenges is because there's so much opportunity to go out for innovation in both the construction and rail industry. I guess if you had to point it to one challenge, then reducing manual ways of working is probably the closest fit. But what I'd say is that, if you don't have a real alignment from what your solution is to what other challenges are, don't try and shoehorn it in. There are other opportunities to work with HS2 from what I talked about earlier. Supply chain collaboration, accelerator, some of the different partnerships and competitions that we work with with Innovate UK and some of our frameworks. So there's more than one way of working with us. So I would suggest don't try and shoehorn things in.
Perfect. We have a phase 1/2 question here. As those not involved in HS2 to date will lack domain knowledge, is the intention to submit a general idea, and if successful, the plan for phase 1 is to scope out the idea in more detail?
That's an interesting question. So I think Rob would endorse, it would be terrific to have organizations involved that haven't already worked with HS2. So that's a big plus for applications. In terms of lack of domain knowledge, there clearly is the opportunity to gather that domain knowledge through working directly with HS2 and demonstrating your capability in phase 1. The challenge, as always, is that might be a slight obstacle in terms of constructing your application, but that's why we organize days like today. You have a great opportunity today, both this morning and in the afternoon session, to understand a little bit more about HS2 and what they're looking for.
And just to add to that, I'm sure you can appreciate we speak to a lot of organisations as an innovation team, and a lot of those organisations don't have that experience, and that's exactly why we're launching this competition, is to try and attract new talent. So please do put forward a submission. I'd say the only thing that you need to think about and consider for that is that you need to try and have a handle on the value your offering, solution, your business can present to either the project or to the industry, and having an idea of what that scale is super important to how we analyse opportunities. If you're struggling to do that, then I would suggest the tier 1 joint ventures on HS2, and they all have innovation leads. I would reach out to those joint ventures, or reach out to us as an innovation team, and we can try and help you try and quantify and point you into the right directions that people can help you sort of quantify those values. But that's core to your business. Should be trying to value and understand the value proposition to the industry you're presenting your solutions to.
Brilliant, thank you. Rob, another one for you. Is it required to have the tier 1 supplier on board from phase 1?
No, it's not a requirement. You don't need to have them on board by tier 1. I think Kelvin sort of alluded to that earlier, that can, once we complete phase 1, we would showcase, the 10 successful projects to our supply chain. We would bring you in to present to our supply chain, and that's really the sort of route to market that we talk about. And allow you a bit of a matchmaking exercise there to understand what needs are met from each contract by each solution.
Perfect, thank you. And I think just one final question. I would recommend a lot of these questions will be answered very capably by our one-to-one specialists. So do book a conversation if you haven't booked one already. But I think we'll just finish off with signal equipment rooms, base station hotels, 5G technology, etc. Is there a place for this kind of conceptual innovation within this HS2 competition?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find that quick. Could you repeat that question again, Daisy? Apologies.
It's fine. Signal equipment rooms, base station hotels, 5G technology, and so on. Is there a place for this kind of conceptual innovation within this competition?
I guess, go back to the scope and my point on, don't try to shoehorn. There are other opportunities. So, but I'm just trying to understand where it would fit. I mean, 5G tech, absolutely. Reducing the manual ways of working. We're going to have lots of different sites along the route. Some of those will have different remote access. That's definitely going to be an issue. I guess we've got two of my supply chain colleagues on the call, Nick and Harrison. Nick or Harrison, do you have any points on the sort of equipment rooms and base stations? Not something I'm too close with, to be honest.
Sorry, Rob, something I'm not directly involved in, so I can find out more details about that, but something I'm not directly involved in.
Yeah, again, Rob, from me, I'm not directly involved in that, but again, thinking of interfaces, if it does something to improve or reduce the number of interfaces that we have, if that's an opportunity, perhaps it could move into that box.
And yeah, providing it answers the challenge better, then let's have a one-to-one session to discuss those.
Fantastic. And I think we've probably got time for one more before the break. So what do you anticipate the success rate will be on this competition? So for example, 10 contracts, 200 applications, 20 to 1. What are we looking at in terms of a rate?
It's a really good question. And to whoever who asked that, we wish we knew. So this is the first partnership between Innovate UK and HS2. So we're breaking new ground here. What we could say that in the past, when we run competitions for other government organisations like Network Rail and like Department for Transport, what we tend to receive is a range of applications in the ratio of 2 to 1 to the funded projects, up to 10 to 1. So the best case scenario for an applicant is there's a 1 in 2 chance of receiving funding, and in the worst case, it's about 10 to 1. But as I said, we don't know what's going to happen with HS2. We understand how attractive it might be to work in partnership with HS2 on this competition. And the other important consideration is which of the 5 themes you apply to. So within the program, some themes might be more oversubscribed than others. But we wish all applicants good luck. It's please don't be put off by the fact that the probability of success is less than 1 or less than 100%. We're receptive to your applications and we encourage you to get them in.
And thanks for that, Kelvin. That's a great summary. The one advice I would suggest is, please focus on the value proposition of your offering. Please articulate that well so we can understand the true value. We want to make sure that we do all of these applications the justice they deserve, and they all these applications take time. We understand that. So to give yourselves the best opportunity possible, please really well articulate the value propositions that you're offering.
Perfect. I think that's a good place to leave our Q&A for now. As I said, any questions that haven't been answered, we will be answering those in the next few days and pulling together a Q&A document as well. And of course, please do book a one-to-one slot for later if you have specific questions. We'll take a short break, so please do be back by 11:15 with coffee, biscuits, tea for our specialist presentations. And thank you so much. Fantastic. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump straight in to our specialist presentations. So now I'm going to hand you over to Heather. Heather, over to you.
Thanks, Daisy. Hi, everyone. My name's Heather Donald, and I'm an Innovation Manager at HS2. So I'm going to give you a brief overview into the Reducing Manual Operations Challenge. The construction industry has been slow to adopt digital capabilities. Large projects take longer to finish than scheduled and are often over budget, but at HS2 we want to change this, and the construction industry is in need of disruption and innovation. So we're looking for applications from SMEs that can help us make every second of our programme count. We're looking for SMEs that have technological and digital solutions that replace manual ways of working and replace activities and processes that are labour intensive and inefficient. We're looking for a new innovation that will identify or remove paper-based activities, an innovation that will automate or optimise processes, or an innovation that will consolidate business processes and achieve a step change in terms of efficiency. Next slide, please. The construction industry of HS2 is the single largest infrastructure project ever undertaken by the UK construction industry. The scale of the programme is immense. We will create 533 kilometres of track, lay 73 kilometres in tunnels, and use a staggering 19.7 million tonnes of concrete. So as you can see, we're managing a huge project schedule and project costs against a very complex build programme. We're managing large contracts across complex commercial landscapes. For example, in our Old Oak Common stations contract with BBVS, we estimate that we're going to need over 2,000 permits. So you can imagine what that number will look like once replicated across the programme. So the scale of the HS programme represents a real once in a generation opportunity to leave behind a legacy of innovation and transform our ways of working. So we want to hear from SMEs that will bring the very best digital processes, products and technologies and really shift us towards a more advanced data-driven way of working. On the next slide, you'll see an example of an innovation project that we have already undertaken to reduce manual operations. Our digital skeletal remains project developed, tested and deployed a new user-friendly digital application to allow complex archaeological recording. It was first deployed in St James's Garden to remove a staggering 45,000 skeletons, the largest ever in the UK. So the system developed a codified based operating system based on archaeological specifications for recording skeletons in line with UK Historic England standards. This has since been adopted route-wide and has totally transformed the way in which the industry operates. So we're looking for the next innovation that will help us reduce manual operations on this scale. On the next slide, I just want to cover some application do's and don'ts. So what we are looking for is submissions that will shift our industry towards a more advanced data-driven way of working, and the solutions critically need to integrate with our existing IT architecture. And we're not looking for applications that have long lead times and that won't add value to the phase 1 of the HS2 programme. We're also not looking for applications that have a high risk or complexity with low rewards. Thank you for your time, and I'll pass back to Daisy for the next presentation.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Heather. That was really, really informative. And now I'm going to be handing you over to Hassan and Antonia. So Antonia, Hassan, over to you.
Sorry, it's Harrison's.
Oh, do you beg your pardon? I think I must have got my agenda out of order. Harrison, over to you then.
Hi everyone, my name's Harrison O'Hara. I'm the Innovation Manager working on the SCS contract. That's the joint venture between Skanska, Costain and Strabag. And we're delivering the S1 and S2 main works of HS2. I'm going to be running through the onboarding and recruitment challenge that we have here on HS2. So SCS has to recruit a huge amount of people in order to deliver the project. SCS will also be competing with all the other main works contractors as well as the rest of the construction industry. It's well known that the construction industry already has a significant skills gap, and Brexit will have a significant impact on that skills gap, with 30 to 40% of our current labour supply currently coming from Europe. There will now be an application process for visas, which will inevitably put some people off from applying to come and work in this country. COVID-19 is also having a significant impact on our local communities, leaving vast amount of people unemployed and out of work. We have an opportunity here to retrain these people to work in construction, to bridge that skills gap that we currently have. We need to be creative in attracting new talent to make HS2 a desirable and reliable place to work. It's important that our workforce reflects our local communities and profile and demographics of those communities, and upskilling and transferring knowledge so people can come and work in construction is a really important legacy that HS2 can leave behind. As well as the significant volume of people that we have to process through our onboarding and recruitment, we also have to maintain a high standard and ensure that a culture of behavioural safety is embedded into our workforce. This slide is just some facts and figures to show you the scale of the operation that we have to operate here at HS2. HS2 as an organisation and all of the main works contractors has to employ some 30,000 people to deliver the project. In order to do that within SCS, we will be recruiting and onboarding up to 250 to 300 people per month. At our peak numbers, SCS will be employing 1,500 people. Labour on top of that is another 3,000 people. And on top of that, we have our subcontractors. We have over 700 different roles to employ on SCS. And we've set ourselves a target of 5% apprentices to make up our workforce. So just to give you a flavour of what we're doing differently, as we've stated previously, it's not only the huge amount of people that we have to process for onboarding, we also have to instill a culture of behavioural safety. As a project, we're doing this through scenario-based behavioural training programme. We can't reveal too much because we want the experience to be impactful and genuine, but it'll be highlighting how experiences at home and at work can affect your decision-making. It will remind people on why they want to be safe, why they want to work safely, and why they want to keep their colleagues safe. I'll echo Heather's sort of applications, do's and don'ts, but also for us, innovations can be broad and ranged. It can vary from anything from technology, process, new system innovations. We want something that can be delivered within the next 12 to 24 months. We're not looking for long lead time projects, so ultimately we want something to be delivered in this phase one of the project. We're not looking for projects that will seek multi-million-pound investment in order to get them off the ground, and we're going to stay away from high-risk projects. That's all from me, and really look forward to working with some of you in the future. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And now I'm going to be handing you back over to Rob Cairns.
Hi, Daisy. Thanks. So I'd like to discuss the procurement loss prevention challenge with you today. And I guess what do I mean by procurement loss prevention? So cost control on a project such as HS2 is something that will attract the wrong type of interest on occasion. So organised crime and fraudulent activity is something that have been targeted on mega infrastructure projects around the world. So our goal is to try and identify this and automate the identification of this as much as possible. So what do I mean by procurement loss prevention? So there could be procurement or contract management concerns. There could be land and property transactions, and financial distribution fraud, and staff malfeasance. All of these can lead to sort of considerable project impacts on environmental impacts, business impacts, the cost of managing these activities, the cost of investigation, the response rates, and government outcomes of impact of a sort of sector level, not just for HS2, but how one of the government reports that I'll lead to later will clearly demonstrate the size and scale and impact of this type of issue that can occur. And also there's a security impact. So organised crime groups can have significant impact on security and the types of fraudulent activity that can be used on projects such as HS2 to fund groups and terrorism and other sorts of crimes. And to highlight some facts and figures, so this is a public report by the Cabinet Office from 2009 for cross-government fraud landscape and the annual report. You can see here that this is really the tip of the iceberg, and that there's a total estimated loss of anywhere between 2.8 and 22.6 billion across UK government, and that's unaccounted for losses. And that's sort of 0.5% to 5% of total public expenditure. HS2 is therefore looking to try and automate and optimize solutions that can identify this type of activity. I believe in 2017, 2018, only 218 million was identified through this process, and that's because it's a very manual intensive process. Not a great deal of AI and type of technologies are used to identify this type of activity. Here you can see the PwC Global Economic Crime and Fraud Survey, and on the left-hand side you can sort of see the appealing facts to organised crime from the HS2 project. The complexity, the size, the uniqueness, the contractual structures associated to the project. On the right-hand side, I'm sorry if it's a little bit difficult to see, but the wheel is basically alluding to the different types of industries of where this type of activity can occur. On the right-hand side, you can see engineering and construction at around 35%. On the left-hand side, you can see the financial sector. And the financial sector are where we're trying to learn the lessons here. They've applied different technologies, blockchain, AI, automated ways of data analytics to help reduce the risk. Undoubtedly, it still occurs across all the different industries in the UK. So it is definitely cognizant that we recognise this as a potential threat to our project, and we try to do something proactive to address it. The do's and don'ts of what we're really looking for in this type of for this type of challenge. We want some real-time solutions that can encompass AI methodologies to reduce some of these threats. We want to see some tangible outputs and reporting that can make it very visible and open to our reporting teams, our exec teams, and our board of type of activities that are taking place on the project. But we want it to be scalable. We want to have a blend of AI and a blend that requires investigation purposes from within our specialist teams. And we want low false positive rates. What we're not looking for high cost solutions that are going to be resource hungry. Again, I sort of alluded to earlier, we are a lean client. Therefore, we need to try and take advantage of these type of capabilities to automate and support us as much as possible. We'd like some advanced analytics that can help with predictive analytics, descriptive analytics, and social network analysis. But these solutions, they can't impact on the delivery and the scheduled delivery of the project. Time is one of our most conscientious themes that we need to focus on, and you'll hear that throughout the duration of the HS2 project. So I look forward to your applications, and thank you for listening to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Rob. I'm going to now hand over to Antonia and Hassan.
All right, thank you, Daisy. Good morning, everyone. I am Hassan, a graduate in the Innovation Department at HS2, and I'm joined by my fellow colleague, Antonia, and we will be presenting to you the Waste in Construction Challenge. So moving on to the challenge background, the construction industry contributes to a large percentage of waste generated in the UK. Whether it is from packaging or building materials, waste in construction industry is a harsh reality. And a research suggests that around 20 to 30% of products arriving on site are wasted. Although the UK's industry has come a long way when it comes to recycling and reuse practices, but with proper planning and use of technology, we can do even more. Now at HS2, we'll have to manage demolition waste, construction waste, and surplus excavated material. And we would like to have submissions focused on construction waste. Now, when we talk about construction waste in particular, there are different contributing factors as seen in Figure 1. These are some of the key factors amongst many. These are poor storage, lack of protection, multi-handling, poor quality site control, over-ordering, packaging, and damage. And there are different ways that we can tackle these challenges, such as moving away from single-use packaging or just-in-time solution to address over-ordering and control of stock, or we could have a smart site setup to manage delivery, storage, and protection of materials and equipment. So these were just some examples. Now I will going to hand over to my fellow colleague Antonia, who will going to take you through the facts and figures and the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Hassan. So now we're looking at the facts and figures. This table highlights the amount of estimated waste on the HS2 project. This takes into consideration phase 1, 2A and 2B, with the estimated total waste to be around 28 million tonnes, in which construction waste is approximately 20% of this project. Coming back to the context of how big this 28 million figure is, according to research, the UK's annual construction, demolition and excavation total waste is around 136 million tonnes. So this demonstrates the opportunity for better, smarter methods of waste management. Some other key facts are that the construction industry generates 50,000 tonnes of plastic packaging waste per year, with 40% of it being sent to landfill, which highlights how much plastic is single use. This area alone has so much potential to bring in innovative solutions to HS2 and into the industry. So looking now at a case study of Skanska's, where they had the company aims for the Barts Hospital demolition and build, and for comparison, here you can see their outcomes. They introduced returnable transit packaging to transport mechanical and electrical products, such as the 30,000 light fittings. The packaging that replaced the cardboard was robust plastic crates that could be collapsed down and returned to the suppliers for reuse. There was also a decrease in incidences of damaged goods as well, which reduced the construction waste further. They also developed a real-time waste management database tool to monitor each waste stream. This prevented subcontractors from over-ordering stock, and as a result, they sent 0% of the project's waste to landfill. If you compare this to the size of the HS2 project, it's not difficult to see that there's going to be a lot more challenges at hand with HS2. However, there is so much more potential then to save millions of tonnes worth of construction waste by improving the efficiency of the site management and improving the sustainability aspect of the procurement and waste. Again, looking at the application guidance, we do want to avoid projects with long lead times, more than 12 to 24 months, as we only expect really to run this project next year. What we do want to highlight though is that what we're looking for in these applications is a huge range of topics and can address any issue relating to from material handling to satellite monitoring or site optimization relating to waste and construction. So thank you all for listening. We look forward to your applications, and I'll hand you back to Daisy.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. And now last, but certainly not least, on to Nick. Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Daisy. So my name is Nick Potterwin. I'm an innovation manager at Align. Align is a joint venture between Bouygues, Sir Robert McAlpine and Volker Fitzpatrick. And today I'm going to talk a few minutes about interfaces. Interfaces have the potential to be threats or opportunities, but more often than not, they are seen as something that will negatively impact the cost or program of the project. Interface management is the method of managing these interactions and mitigating these risks. As the number of different entities and scope of the project increases, so do the risks associated with these interfaces. A properly implemented interface management process utilizing an interface management system helps to ensure the proper communication and transparency between multiple interfacing subsystems. I'm just going to give you a bit of the high-level facts and figures around some of these interfaces. And this doesn't go down into the layers below the top tier contractors, but you can see there are 600 interfaces between people like ourselves and HS2. And just pick out there the interfaces there between C1, which is the section of the route that we're responsible for, and S2, which is another part of the route that we interface with. We've got 50 interfaces there, but just one of those interfaces is utilities. And within that, you've got sub interfaces between power distribution companies, the national grid, gas distribution companies, telecoms, and water network. So it quickly grows, as you'll see. So the challenge to you is, how do we stop being a slave to the spreadsheet? How do we innovate, and how do we look for sort of reducing the pain in this process? And how can we get more value from insights in our interface management? So to give you a bit of a flavour at the project level of what these interfaces are, looking at the top left picture there, this is the Colne Valley viaduct that we'll be building. This is a 3.4 kilometre viaduct. It crosses multiple lakes, which have a variety of purposes of water sports, fishing and nature reserves. It crosses a river, a canal and local minor roads, and stretches across 2 local authorities. All these provide interesting and complex interfaces in their own right. Top right is our northern portal and links us with section C2 of the route. Again, we've got thinking about time and space and program interfaces, and added complexity around planned work versus the actual work just creates further complexity. The bottom right is the tunneling section that we're building. Is a 16-kilometre tunnel. This is located in our 3rd local authority and goes under the M25. And what you can see in the photo there, the picture is the red elements are the rail systems and the interfaces that we have between our tunnel and those rail systems. And lastly, would be wrong of me not to mention, and although we don't have a number to put against it, is the digital world and the digital interfaces. And although we're an integrated project team of 3 partners and HS2 as well, we also often have barriers between our different platforms that we use, creating additional interfaces and handoffs. You know, and within each discipline, people are using different apps and online tools, which creates extra complexity. Each interface on its own is not really complicated, but you can see if we make a design change, how careful we have to be to manage all those different interfaces and make sure it's covered off correctly. So I hope this paints a bit of a picture for you about the interfaces found on our project. Just a few do's and don'ts. We are looking for some ideas that will optimize this interface management process, reduce the manual data entry, and improve the user experience. I think I've made the point already, but we're not looking for any more spreadsheet solutions. We're looking for novel and innovative sort of methods that can help us improve this process. So just like to say thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing about the submissions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you all for those extremely informative presentations. And thank you again to everyone who attended today to listen. We're all really excited to see the applications for and the outputs from this competition. For those of you who have booked one-to-one meetings, these will be beginning at 12 o'clock, so we will see some of you then. And to everyone else, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week and weekend, and hope to hear from you all very soon.